Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie. And just like that, the 2025 season has ended for Carlton. We managed to weirdly get a couple of optimistic wins at the back end of the season, finishing off with back-to-back victories, albeit against pretty weak and poor opposition. But weirdly, quickly, things have turned straight away to the off-season, and there is a lot of maybe not so happy news floating Carlton's way at the moment, and we will be here to break down and go through it all. But firstly, before we do that, Lockie, how are you? And like I said, there is so much going on right now. How are you reacting to it all?
Mate, I'm fantastic, and I'm not pushing any emotions on anybody. I think you could look at some of these things as being unhappy, but I'm feeling very glass half full, excited, and I'm happy that we've hit the ground running this off season, quote unquote, like as soon as our season ended. It would be agony if we were waiting all through the finals with no news. So I'm happy that we're starting to see the wheels in motion.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how the season has ended and then immediately we don't even get a break at all. Like the emotions were running high to finish because of how it all wrapped up, and it's gone to 11 right now. And as much as it's not ideal, I feel like I'm ready for change, and I'm just excited to see where it all ends up heading into 2026. But first, we need to quickly breeze through the Essendon game. I feel like we missed out on the Port win. A few weeks back, we missed out on the Melbourne win. So we haven't covered a win on this podcast in what feels like 6 months, Lockie. So we need to talk about this a little bit. Now, again, we won our last two games of the season against two poor teams. What do you kind of make of these performances? Was it enough to get you excited for next year? Did it actually mean anything? I'm very interested to get your perspective on how you saw these last two games.
It was definitely enough to get me excited. Like I said to you in preparing for last week's pod that didn't happen, like it was just great to feel that joy again of getting a win and seeing us put a whole bunch of ones through the big sticks, which we haven't been able to say all season. So it definitely gave me that joy back, which was great. And like I said, I'm feeling optimistic about what's to come. Yes, it wasn't against the greatest opposition, but we haven't been the greatest team this year. So, still had to get the wins. And I think we got some things out of this that we wanted, like seeing some performances from some kids, some kind of more speculative players. Like I think there's a little bit more clarity going into next season based on a couple of good wins.
Yeah, I think the Port game definitely got me a lot more excited than the Essendon game itself. I wasn't probably as happy throughout that, but it's not saying the season ended well. Like you win a couple of games, it doesn't excuse what came before it. I think we're all at the point where we're very unhappy. We know a lot needs to happen to get us in a good position heading into 2026. But everything was so miserable just to see, like you mentioned, a few of the youngsters perform and show some glimmers of hope. And then, a guy like Frankie Evans doing what he did again, there was at least a little bit to smile about, which I think has been just missing for so many stages of this season.
Yeah, I agree. You kind of do have to separate these two games in a way. This was a gross watch. And if you were a neutral fan watching this, I think it would have been, pulling your eyes out kind of territory. But like I said, it was just nice to get those wins. And I think people debate like how meaningful this is to like the players and that kind of thing. How long has it been since we'd won our last home and away game? Something like 10 years, 11 years. I saw that stat. So just that positivity of going in with a win, there has to be something in that, I hope.
Yeah. Isn't that such a wild stat? Like it almost isn't when you think about how bad we've been, but even just winning the last game of the home and away season and then winning our last game of the season regardless, been about 10 years, which is just crazy to think about. But some quick takeaways from this game. Were you able to take any individual performances or any specifics on game plan? What kind of stood out for you as far as I can go into next season and I've now seen this, I can bank on it a little bit more?
Interesting. I mean, did this game feel like a lifetime ago, or is that just me? I
It
can't believe
does.
this was only 6 days ago. I've thought about this so little. I guess start with kind of like the young guys, the kind of speculative guys, where when you look at our out of contract players, there's quite a few that are kind of interesting decisions, I think. And there's a few guys where I feel a little bit more confident about at least giving them another year and seeing what they've got. Um, yeah, plenty of names that you could put into that kind of basket. And then also the ones that we were a bit less speculative, but just the ways that guys like Carroll, Cowan, even Motlop, who's kind of still speculative, I'm feeling at least a little more confident based on a performance like this that, okay, let's keep persisting and seeing if there's something there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think it's as bad as obviously the results been this year that it's maybe a potential blessing of how much of the youth that we have been able to expose to the top level this season? Like Moya, Flynn Young has shown a couple of little things late.
Yep.
O'Keefe, O'Farrell, Wilson, Carroll, there's many more you could go on a name. Do you think this could be a real positive for us going forward, knowing either this guy has it, he doesn't, or at least giving them a bit more of a platform for next season?
Yes, I think if it's a positive, like if you want to draw positives from this dismal season, I think that would be one. Like you and I, trying to give opinions on recontracting players 10 weeks ago, how could we give an opinion on Wilson? Like just
Yeah.
not having seen him play. If everything went to plan this year, we probably wouldn't have seen him at all. But now, after probably his strongest performance on the weekend, I feel like, there's something there at least to persist for at least one more year, as an example.
Yeah. No, completely agree. I think if you want a positive, it is one. For as bad as everything around that has been, in a bad circumstance, we're able to take a tiny positive out of it. And I do think that there are enough signs from a few of those players in particular to get excited about. And maybe we don't have to go out there and get someone else. Maybe the depth is going to be okay next year going forward if we can top up and keep other players a little bit more healthy. One of the other, I think, biggest takeaways I wanted to talk about it last week, need to talk about it now, is Sammy Walsh and his comeback. Many were very nervous about it.
Come on.
Said he shouldn't play the last couple of games of the season. I was of the opinion of, let's put him out there. Let's see it. Let's make it happen. And this is what you get. Back to his best. He was absolutely firing in these last two games. And boy, does it make a difference to how our midfield looks. And it's even funnier when you think of how the media have spoken about Sam Walsh this year, saying Carlton need to trade him. And then in the same breath saying Carlton need more midfield run. Well, idiots. Sam Walsh is the midfield run. Do not trade him. And yes, he is still an absolute star. What did you make of Sammy Walsh's little return at the end of the year?
Totally. I mean, like we said on the last episode, this is a testament to just backing in, I guess, the medical team and all of that when they say that a player's ready, that, yeah. And he said it himself, like, wouldn't want to have just sat out the season to reduce what risk, really, at the end of the day. So that's great. Yeah, I can't really add much more to what you said. The play has been awesome. It feels like he's turned a new page in terms of like leadership and his presence and all of that, which is just so welcome. In a time where I look at so many of our other players that are in that 25 to 35 age bracket, and I'm like, where are the leaders who are the people that I believe in that are actually the strong leaders at the club? And he's now kind of put his hand up and said, like, I'm ready to be one of those guys.
Yeah, and I think there was a massive concern around his form this season, his injuries, and just what player you might get back. Is this the end of Sam Walsh? Is he going to be explosive? Can he still do what he did? Or is he just going to be middling, an okay player for us? And obviously, it's only 2 games. It's against poor opposition. But you saw him almost at the peak of his powers off absolutely no form, no games, it wasn't like he had that preseason and jumped straight in. So I think that was such a big takeaway for me that, okay, that ability's still there. It's still the same Sam Walsh. let's just hope he can finally get a full preseason under his belt, come back fresh, because he changes the way that midfield looks completely when he's in there from how it's looked without him.
He also played like hardly any game time in these 2 games and still had the stats of someone that just dominated for a full game, which is another credit to him. So yeah, that's a great positive.
Crazy. Did you have any others?
I'm now taking myself back to that game and just how low pressure it was, and at moments where I was like, can we just like it felt like at times I felt like we were taking it too easy, like we were almost going to their level. Like we were trying to be too tricky at times and that kind of thing. So no, have you got any others? Because the takeaways aren't coming to my mind really.
I've got 2. I said, I think the last time we did a podcast, but I'm going a little bit bigger this time and saying just Frankie Evans is so him. This is
obviously
one of the most legendary runs I think we've seen.
This has to be
said
studied.
He was Jeremy Lin last time we were on this podcast. He's beyond that now. Like he was like the top 6th rated player in the last like month and a half in the AFL season. The turnaround has been incredible, and will he continue this form going into next season? Look, who knows? But the fact that he clearly has just such good footy IQ to get in the right spots, he's got a bit more confidence. He's got the fan support as well, which can go a long way with our rabid fan base. There's so much to like that we didn't think there was anything. Now, at worst, if he's not now best 22 and there's an injury, I think as fans we can go, okay, well, Frankie might kick 1 or 2. This is okay. But there's a potential because he is still young. I believe he's only about 23 years of age.
Yeah.
Is this a turning point for someone like him now where he could go on to be one of our best small forwards?
Like I said, it needs to be studied. I don't really understand this. Like, can you think of a precedent for this where a player has had their perception changed so much overnight within a season? Like, he would have been 1 month ago, he would have been almost my first delisting.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
To now almost like what are the first to sign?
Now we're saying give him the TDK money. Let's go. Give him 1.8 million.
Got it.
He's the only one that's making me happy. And this game was literally Evans versus Guelphy for like 90% of it. I don't think anyone else was really out there, especially once Walsh went off the field and had 3 goals, could have kicked a bunch more as well. But it's just his positioning's really great. His kicking, his vision.
Yep.
There's just so much to like. His competitiveness. There is something about him that is clearly making him a cult figure at the Blues, but I do think that there is, without going too crazy, I'm not going to say he's going to be the starting small forward next season, but I think he's going to be a really handy player for us now going forward. And I'm really excited to see what could happen with a preseason, because if this ideally has happened because he comes in later than you ideally want. He was the SSP pickup.
Yep.
Finally gets into the swing of things and starts to be a good player. Imagine a whole preseason with this group. Could that be an even bigger lift? Who knows?
And you look at his game log and it was like 1 game out of the team, another game out of the team, out for 2 months, 2 games back, out again. Like he had no continuity.
Yeah.
So yeah, in hindsight it was all against him, but like as we were reviewing these games, you look at him and the role that he was playing and then his output in that role. And it was like, how can we keep picking this guy? How are they justifying this? And again, like I said about the testament to the judgment on Sam Walsh and his health, kudos to them for persisting and getting this out of him, because this has been unreal.
And if he doesn't kick those goals, he's looking at 5 tackles in that game. So he's at least still bringing the pressure. There's other elements to his game that seem to be up, which is kind of where I look at him right now in saying, I'm not expecting him to kick 3 goals every game like he's done for this kind of last month of the season. But if we're getting that intensity around everything, then I love that and I want that in my team every week next year.
He's certainly risen up the hierarchy in terms of those small forwards, for sure.
And then the last thing was just there
Yep.
seemed to be a real focus on the quick forward handballs these
Oh
last
yeah,
couple of
totally.
weeks. I don't know if that just comes down to the opposition, the lack of pressure, making it a lot easier for us. Is it Walshy? I have no idea, but it feels different. It feels like we went back to a bit more of that
Mm.
chaotic handball chain that we saw work so well for us in 2023 when we got to that prelim. And it felt like there were more options when we got the hand out as well. We were
Yeah.
running in numbers, which we've been critical of for some time. And guys like Motlop as well, pushing up, bringing that pressure, bringing that heat, being that sort of spark to get things going. I thought that was a big positive, and
Yeah.
it's left more intrigue into next season. Thinking, don't want to get my hopes up too much because I know this has happened previously. We look good against poor opposition, and then
Hmm.
it all fades away. But
Mm-hmm.
it just felt different than what I'd seen for so many of these games in the way we were playing this season.
Definitely. And I think the reason of that is all the points that you mentioned. Walsh there in his run, different players being in the right spots, the opposition, but also tactically, it had to have been part of it that was a focus. So you're right. That was optically a very different thing, and hopefully a good sign for the future.
Let's hope so. But what were your votes,
Uh,
Lockie? Your 3, 2, and your 1. And we can wrap up the actual on field footy discussion for
Crazy.
2025.
Into the more exciting things. God, I'm tossing up a little bit. I'm giving Walsh the 2 because of his performance in such limited game time. Honestly, like almost bog in less than 3/4 of a game. So he gets my 2. Yeah, look, I'll give Frank my 3 because it's just such a welcome change to see that mid forward connection. Like it was the same thing in the Port game where every time he goes near it and you think to yourself, he can't do something good here again. Like he's gonna cock this one up. And he just doesn't. And then he just does good and good and good. So love you, Frank. And then I'm giving Wiedering the 1.
Yeah.
Arguably could give him the 3 because he was just so insanely solid and came back from nowhere, I guess, after kind of a disappointing season overall for him. So what he did to McMahon was a bit cruel.
Yeah, I've also given Weeders my 1. Agree, could have given him the 3, but when Frankie Evans exists, I'm sorry, no one else can get the 3
Exactly.
votes. So yes, Frankie also got my 3. My 2 is where we differ. So at least finally we are divided again. I gave it to Motlop because
Yeah,
as long-term listeners know, the
that's
2
good.
votes goes to the player that performed above expectations, not necessarily the second best player this week. And I thought for a lot of criticism he's copped, I've really liked his last month of footy. I think his pressure, his energy has been really good. He's not finishing it off. He's not getting those goals, which you want to have for one of those kind of more nimble small forwards. But what he's doing kind of is that high half forward for us, getting the ball moving inside 50. I think he's really strong, and that was honestly one of his best games I think he's actually played for the club. So for me,
Definitely.
he gets my 2 votes.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, he is still so young. The expectations are so high on him. I still can't really articulate what his biggest strengths are. That's a weird part about him to me. But yeah, for sure. This game was from what we've seen from him recently, awesome. And like I said before, definitely worth persisting with.
Yes. Now, let's get into the juicy stuff, Lockie, because plenty is
About
happening
time.
around the Blues. There is plenty of news. Tom de Koning, he has
Yeah.
officially left us and will be going to the Saints as a free agent. We've decided not to match the 1.8 million a year
Thank God.
that the Saints are offering. What is your reaction to the news? I guess of him leaving the football club.
I definitely thought that this was going to be the outcome based on all the evidence. So it wasn't a shock. I'm feeling extremely calm about this one and not feeling hard feelings towards TDK, in my opinion, based on just the sheer contract difference to move to another club in Melbourne, like the reasons around that. I think it would have been crazy for him not to take it, is my opinion.
Yeah, I think with De Koning, I don't want to like knock a player now that they're leaving us, but as far as why not? We can do it now. It's fine.
Never rated him.
Well, last time I remember he was out of contract, I went quite harsh in saying, has he actually played a top star game of AFL at this stage? Have you been like, wow, De Koning was best on? At that stage, it was a no.
Mm-hmm.
I'd almost argue this time, Lockie, that
Mm-hmm.
as far as top 3 rucks in the competition, best of the best, because that's the money that we were offering him. That's the money St Kilda are offering him.
Yep.
How many games has he played of AFL footy where you went, wow, he's one of the best ruckmen in the competition? I'd argue it's like 5 to 7.
Yeah, against high quality opposition. Agreed.
Like I think he's very important to how we play with a bit of a slower, not as dynamic moving midfield. The way he plays, he is that extra midfielder. So to a degree, it's a loss in that capacity. But I don't want to be paying really any ruckman over 800K. To hear we were potentially willing to pay him 1.1 is too much, particularly off the evidence we saw this year as well. I thought he was droppable at stages. You compare that to the 1.8. I don't begrudge him for leaving. I'm not upset. I would have loved to have kept him, but just not on the terms that we seem to be offering, that Saints were offering. It feels like one of those weird ones where you want him to stay, but you're not that sad that he's going.
I'm like you. I'm trying not to be biased now that it's done and be objective about the past. And how I remember it was we ended last season with some great performances that he had individually. And it was, and in my opinion, I was thinking, okay, he could be one of the best ruckmen in the league. And then he started this season brilliantly. And then you just have to decide for yourself whether what has happened since then, which has been playing terribly, how much this whole situation weighs into that versus how much is that just what they're going to get at St Kilda. So I agree with everything you're saying. Like, yeah, if we had signed, if the news came out that he had re-signed for the amount that we had offered him, I think I would almost be disappointed is probably the word that I would use.
And also add into it the predicament we kind of find ourselves in where we are on the ladder, not having our first round draft pick, knowing that if he goes to the Saints, which he now will do, we get that compensation being, I think it's like pick 8 or it's pick 9, something like that. If we had not gotten that and kept Tom De Koning, I think we would have been almost more upset because we now need that draft pick, whether it's to match a bid for Harry Dean, whether it's to actually pick up a draftee or maneuver and move higher up the draft board. I feel like we need that pick right now more than we need a Tom De Koning ruck.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a win for everyone, I think, in this case.
Yeah. I think I agree with that point. And then another point, it feels like people are more in the public and more conscious than ever about, and this is such a frustrating topic for me, but the salary cap. And like, it's frustrating because of the lack of transparency that we have in it all. But if we were paying him a much larger portion than he's probably actually worth, then what are the runoff effects to that, to all the other stars that we're trying to keep and the stars that we're building? Like, what kind of money are we going to want to pay Jagger in a few years when he's going to be winning Brownlows in 2 years, and all these guys? So it's not just, you can't just look at that in isolation. It's a grander picture. And what does it say to other players at Carlton if we say that we're valuing TDK so much more than everybody else? Yeah, I'm personally happy with how this has played out for us.
Yeah, how big of I know we've kind of touched on this, but how big, at least sort of positionally, do you think this loss is, and how do we then look to replace him? Do we have enough on the list? Do you think a Pitto O'Keefe combo is enough? Do we have to look elsewhere? Where do you kind of see, now that he is gone and we're in the world of replacing, how big a loss is it?
It's great that we got to see O'Keefe a bit in the second half, like at the end of the season, to at least have a bit of faith that he can hold his own somewhat. I definitely think we need another ruckman on the list. No doubt about that. Whether that ruckman needs to be the clear number one out of those three, that I'm still yet to get a strong opinion on. We often debate how important the ruck role is, and a big part of, I think, why we saw the importance in TDK was because he was being that different midfielder to all of our other midfielders. Like, he was being the one bursting out of the packs and being nimble and all of that. So I think if we can replace those attributes through midfielders, whether it's Jagger and Walshy being better and all of that, it'll feel like less of a loss.
No, that's a really good way to put it. I maybe hadn't thought about it in the midfield lens and replacing it with actually finally getting a dynamic midfield instead of relying on the ruck. But I think as far as replacing the hierarchy, where I see it is we need to replace his position, which was number one. I don't see Pitto as being that number one. Really? I think he's fine on the list in the position he is. If we need to rely on him at times, perfect. If we need to play the two, that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
O'Keefe, the way he's developing has been good. I don't know if I see him ready to take over the number one ruck duties just yet. I think he's probably more that forward ruck, at least for a few years. Would I look to bring in a star like I guess in an imaginary fantasy world of Rowan Marshall? No, that's not kind of where I see it. I think it's find someone to compete with Pitto that you think can be above him. And we can jump into a few names if you want to, but
yeah, let's do it.
You know, like a Liam Reedy is someone who has been linked, who has been on my radar for quite some time. At Freo, he's 25, he's out of contract. I feel like that is kind of like the perfect, let's see how this goes. You know, there's so many ruckmen that almost come out of nowhere because they're the second string or third string at another club, move somewhere, and all of a sudden they absolutely blow up. Liam Reedy's shown a little bit from what I've seen. I don't mind him, and I think he at least starts at Pitto's level, but has the potential to kind of go above him. You've also got, you know, like a Ned Reeves, who is, you know, the second ruckman at the moment at the Hawks. He's out of, I think he's a pre-agent, so he's a free agent next year. Could be someone that would look for more opportunities. I'd say he's better than Pitto right now. And then even like someone like a Ned Moyle at Gold Coast, I feel like that'd be harder. Contracted to 2028. He's 23 years of age. I think Witts is about 32. They definitely see him taking over. But maybe you can convince him and say, look, do you want to wait another year or do you want to start and be the number one ruck now? That's kind of would be my sell. But I think any of those three, I'd be pretty fine with that going into next season and seeing where that lays by the end of 2026.
Reedy is definitely the name of those three that intrigues me the most because, as you mentioned, like seeing so little of him, obviously not going to get any opportunity over there. So give it a go. From the little parts that I've seen of Moyle, I wouldn't have thought that he is better than Pitto right now. And then Reeves, probably debatable. I mean, he's probably is better. We've been so high on Pitto at different times. Sentiment feels kind of low now. I don't know. I guess in this situation, I'm open, depending on who is actually available, to us going into next season with Pitto as the number one guy, with us bringing in someone to be under him, and then O'Keefe to develop for 1 year and see how we go. Just so we don't do anything reckless, like you mentioned, like go after Marshall and overpay or give too much or whatever that may be. That would be disappointing.
Yeah, and I think I like your kind of point of let's build the midfield out just a little bit more while we sort the ruck situation. Because De Koning is a loss talent-wise compared to what we do have, as much as I feel like I spoke so negatively of him for a little bit. But you look at how many times you have to look back at the Premiership ruckman
I know, I'm just going
over the last 10 years, and it's not a star, and it doesn't have to be. Darcy Fort was the Premiership ruckman last season.
Reece
you just need someone to be able to do a job. And that's why I like the idea of a Liam Reedy as well, because he also comes in as someone who doesn't necessarily have to be better than Pitto straight away, just needs to be at that level where you can trust on him to play week in, week out. He'd be on cheap money. You can spend it elsewhere. And that's what I like in a list. And it was why there was so much
like
concern around Koning. So I think that's
I like that.
a positive for everyone. And look, we did get him to 100 games. So if he does have a child, if he doesn't get to the 100 at the Sainers, well, maybe we could have a little Koning running around in 20 or so years. Who knows? But
8-year deal or whatever it is, you'd bloody hope he's getting to 100 games there. But
who knows? Maybe they'll choose the Baggers, though. It'll be interesting. But speaking of father-sons, I actually didn't even mean this, but this is one of the greatest segues I've ever had.
That's a good segue.
Jack Silvani, well, he said he's leaving. He is going. It is official. Your reaction to this news? This is one of the spicier things that has probably happened on the podcast. A lot of emotion in this one. Everyone is feeling a whole range of them. So what's your reaction to him officially wanting to leave as a free agent? The club currently is unknown. The Dogs, the Pies, Bombers, and Saints are all linked. Take me through it all, Lockie.
You're probably not going to like this, but I've cooled.
Oh, that's not what I want to hear. How do I get you back firing?
Well, I mean, you'll pitch to me in a moment, I'm sure, about how just infuriated you are, which is how I was feeling, I don't know, a week ago. And now that it's all out in the light and I've thought it through a bit more, like I hate always bringing up these things on the podcast, but there is just so much that we don't know about the day-to-day in the club and all of those things that go on. He's been at this job. You hate to call it that, and we hate when the people at the club call it a job or a business, but for 10 years. The biggest point that I come back to, which is where I'm not feeling bad about it, and maybe you disagree with this point, and I'll try and not make this a massive monologue, but in 1 year, who do we want to be our backline? Hopefully Weeders is still going to be in peak Weeders form.
Yeah.
Hopefully Hoff comes back from his injury and he's going to be even more built. And it's like, we want to keep seeing what we've got with him. You know more about Dean than I do, but I'm hoping that he's going to be best 22 by the end of next year. So where's Sauce?
It's an interesting point, and you wonder how much that actually did play into things where, because the big talking point that comes out from the media is, he doesn't feel loved at Carlton. And they go back to him playing ruck and all these things. And I think to some degree, you look at his actual performances, and this is me going harsh on blokes that are leaving, but how many genuinely, and I love Sauce, I wanted him to stay, but how many top tier games has he played since joining the club? Where you're like, yep, you are nailed on, not even like a star, but like, yep, you're nailed on in that role, best 23 going forward.
When we talked about this in February, we were like, I'm not sure if he's going to be on the list anymore because where does he fit?
And it was like, we loved what he brought. We wanted him to stay, but he hadn't sort of really nailed down that forward role for quite some time. There was glimpses of it. It was like, yes, he was really good then. It's dropped off a bit. Yeah, he chases and tackles, but do we need a bit more than that? Obviously this year down in defense, he's looked amazing. He has been awesome. The perfect foil for Weeders, but so I don't think it's necessarily that he doesn't feel the love. I feel like that's a ridiculous comment to be made if it's talking about him not playing at all. Like they mentioned him not playing that final. He was coming back from an injury and we decided not to risk someone coming cold into the, like, let's actually go back. It wasn't that he was dropped for a final or anything like that. He probably would have played if he was fit, and we didn't think he was. And now this year we've shown him a lot of love and he has turned his back. So yeah, it's interesting because that back line, he's not in it going forward if those two youngsters develop.
Does that point
I agree
resonate?
with that point. I agree with that point. And maybe that is something that he has genuinely thought about and said, I want to stay, but I feel like I've got a year in this back line and I'm back to maybe not having a role.
If I'm just bringing this example off the top of my head, so maybe it's going to be a terrible example and shoot me down if it is. Let's say that Lemmy had been absolutely just dominating in the VFL all year. And it's like, mate, where you're not going to, there's just no path for you in the ones for the next few years, because we just think that Harry, like, it's never going to work with you, Mackay, and Charlie. Would we begrudge him in that situation? I know it's completely different with all the heritage and all of that, but if he was like, I need to go somewhere else, I'm not going to get into this team, we'd be like, of course. I think that's a similar scenario. I'm not sure whether Silvani would be wanting to play him in round 1, 2027. And that's what he would be signing his contract for.
No, it's a really good point. I think, obviously, from a footballing point of view, take the name away from it. I don't necessarily begrudge any player wanting out right now that's been at the club for a long period of time, because they, sold themselves this, okay, it's going to be a bit of a tough grind, but we're going to see the results. And all of a sudden things have turned and it doesn't look as positive as it did. I'm still weirdly optimistic that things can turn around very quickly with few different changes. They're sitting there thinking, it's happened again. This club, they can never sort it out. I want to go somewhere else. I want to go to a football club that seems to be able to know success and build it. And I want a fresh start. Don't begrudge anyone. I think clearly the thing with this is it's the last name. It's the family legacy. It's your pile in. Unfortunately, the things that have happened with his father in this football club. And it really does feel like him leaving is kind of the end of this Silvani legacy at the football club. And it's hard to separate those two. And when you have a father-son, I think in my head, it's meant to be the banker. It's meant to be the one you can rely upon to stay in the football club forever. And you don't have to pay him max coin. He can just play, have many games he wants. He's just happy to be at the football club. And that's what father-sons are kind of meant to be. For him to leave, for it to be not only just a father-son, but a father-son, a grandson, it's kind of crazy. And add on to that, potentially going to the Pies as well. That's another part of this legacy. But yeah, I think for me, him leaving kind of ends it. I think there's been so much bad blood with his dad and the club that has really irked me as a fan. I know it's irked a lot of other people. I get we don't know everything there, but the fact that he couldn't walk into the club for the change rooms for his son's 100th game, that is just crazy to me as a human being, not being able to stand in there for 5 minutes. And now for Jack to kind of, I guess, whether rightfully so or not, crack the shits and want to leave. I'm happy to not see a Silvani again. That's kind of my point of view. I'm happy to line in the sand. This is a big decision. You've made it, but like you don't get to come back in 20 years' time and it's all happy you're a Carlton player. It's no, you've ended the bloodline here is kind of where I'm at with this. And I know some will disagree. They'll think it's overreactionary. It's an immature comment, but I think circumstances around it, and particularly if he does end up going to the Pies, if he goes to the Pies, names are off the locker. We're putting Alex Silvani's face over Stevens in the mural. We're going that far. Alex Silvani's the only Silvani that's allowed at the Carlton Football Club. That's where I'd go if he goes to the Pies. But him just leaving here, it doesn't happen. Father-sons rarely do it in this kind of circumstance with the baggage, I think, of the father as well.
Yeah, you kind of answered the question I was going to ask, and it's really hard to separate this part of it now. But let's say that he was leaving and he's like, I either want to go to the Giants or the Suns. Do you think that would change the way that all this feels? Because I think it would. And I think the way that this has played out with the Collingwood thing is what got me so furious.
Yeah, I think so. I think once that happens and he's even entertaining it, it shows me what kind of person he is. And again, he's allowed to do what he wants. He's an adult, but this is football and there are emotions in fan bases. And it's just you don't expect a father-son, particularly of this legacy, one of the most famous last names, to ever entertain going to that football club. Like that should be something that just doesn't happen. Same for the Dacosters should never contemplate coming to Carlton. Like this is just,
of course not.
And so I think that in itself as soon as that comes out, it's like, okay, I don't want you to don't do your rehab anymore, Jack. Just genuinely leave. I don't want to see you anymore because you've shown me what you are, and I kind of don't want that anymore. And all of this in this period right now, if you're not with us, you're kind of against us. If you're not taking us forward, you're putting us backwards. And if anyone does want to, they don't want to stay at this football club now for whatever reasons, let's move them on. Line in the sand. Let's just get the guys that want to be here and want to take this club forward. I don't really want to have to try and convince someone to stay. I'm not kind of in that anymore. I don't have these like allegiances to players as much anymore. I think that just happens when you grow into the ages that we are right now, where these guys aren't the superheroes. Like, I don't care who's wearing the jumper when we win a grand final necessarily. So everyone's kind of tradable. Everyone can move on. And that's kind of where things sit right now.
Yeah. And to that point, similar to what I said about TDK before, I feel like if it got announced today that he had chosen to stay, would have been very strange emotions inside me of like, but you're not all in, are you? Like you really thought about all those things. Like that's, I don't know. It would change my perception of you if you even stayed. So again, with this one, I'm just not as disappointed as a lot of others.
Do you think it does ruin the Silvani legacy at Carlton? Like, could you welcome him and his dad back in 20 years' time, or how sort of strongly are you in that camp? Because I know I'm currently very emotional in that front.
Yeah, I get that. But this has been going on for a while with Steve. So
yeah,
I don't know. I almost kind of felt like it was a bit tarnished already because of how all that played out.
100%.
So I guess this is a bit of the icing on that cake, but it already felt, I don't know. I was going to say irreparable, but no. Would I be shocked if Stephen Silvani was came back to a Carlton function in 5-10 years? I probably wouldn't be shocked because I think that time can heal all wounds.
I guess we'll see. And then how do we look to replace him? Because I think, as you said, hopefully in a couple of years, it's a Wiedering, it's a Hoff, it's a Dean backline. However, at least for next year and maybe 2027 as well. I mean, we know Wieders is there. Haynes is aging, still playing some good footy. Hoff is going to miss most of next year. Kemp is now a forward, but can go back, might miss a lot of next year with the Achilles. Gov, we don't know if he's going, if he's staying, can play forward and back. Dean obviously comes in. We don't know if he's going to be ready. So
Lewis Young.
Replacing him, Lewis Young's there. It doesn't look amazing because Silvani kind of locked down that number 2 role. The depth is kind of injured or maybe not ready. Do we need to recruit a defender? Where do you kind of see his loss on a player level?
Yeah. I mean, but this is what has made this also frustrating is that with Hoff's injury, like just is so devastating. And I would feel different about this situation if he was still thriving and good to go. I definitely think that we need to bring in another key defender on the list. It just it's just not working with Young, in my opinion. Like ideally we don't want him lining up round 1. I think Haynes has had an awesome year. But who knows what we're going to get from him next year? Is he the oldest player on the list? I think he is.
Yeah.
In terms of who, no idea. And then Gov's obviously up in the air as well with all this business that's going on with the contract.
Yeah, I think someone does need to come in. Weirdly, there's a couple of players I think almost the perfect fit for this with their age profile. Whether they would come to us, I think one's more likely. You've got the unlikely one, which is Darcy Gardner from Brisbane. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's 30 years old. I feel like he'd be kind of perfect in this mold. Can go forward as well. Has that kind of moldability. Issue is because he's a free agent. Does that hurt our compo at all? That would be my one concern. And then it looks like a few other clubs are also interested in him that might want to pay him more, think he's more invested for a few more years. Whereas I guess in my mind, it's a 1 to 2 year, and that's it. I can't even guarantee you the second as far as playing. So the kind of other player I think almost works perfectly for this is like a Sam Frost, who's 32. He's out of contract. Potentially could even get delisted. You know, they've got enough key defenders there where he's been kind of frozen out of it. Don't mind the pun there. I didn't actually want that to happen. But that's adequate great footballer. It feels in the Nick Haynes kind of mold where
it does.
Throw him in for a couple years, you know what you're getting out of him, and there's no pressure of, oh, we've just signed this guy. All of a sudden he's playing VFL because we're playing a youngster.
Oh, he's got to be gone, doesn't he? 2 games, rounds 1 and 2 this season, played half the game time. He's got to be gone.
Yeah. I think you could play almost every game next year if fit, and that's an upgrade on the Lewis Young. It works while Hoff is injured and Dean's developing. I actually quite like the pick.
Player, isn't he? He's chaotic. if you think about it, I don't know, but it's something. It's something.
And then like the other one who we've kind of been linked to, I probably see him weirdly more as a forward, but I know he can play in defense, is then Buku Kamis, 25-year-old. He's a pre-agent, so he's a restricted free agent in 2026. All dogs have a tools, and he's not breaking into that side at all. I think he's one of the most perfect pickups for us, regardless of where we play him. In defense, down forward, we need depth in both of those areas. It would not cost a lot, and he's fine. I don't think he has to play every single week. Just adds to serviceable players that can come in and play a role.
Yep, I agree with that one as well. I do like that name, considering the age and yeah, like you said, that's the Bulldogs are kind of, well, I mean, they're linked to Silvani, which is kind of a weird thing of that, but yeah.
Do you have any other kind of defenders or anyone that has come across your desk as someone that maybe you'd like us to target to replace Sauce?
Not that comes to mind. I mean, like I said, I think that it would be, just as it was probably in my imagination, kind of a tough sell to Jack about keeping him at Carlton based on what the future's going to hopefully look like 2027 onwards. Same thing for really high caliber key defenders, which is why the names that you mentioned seem feasible.
Okay, so next one, let's go to the coaching clear out. We've made some moves with Tom Lonergan, the development and talent manager, gone. Aaron Hamill, my man, has gone, the backline coach. And then the biggest name here, a man who I still don't know what his role actually was, other than looking like Michael Voss, kind of, and also wearing the big headset on the bench. It is the head of coaching performance and innovation. We love a job title that makes you sound a bit more important than potentially you are. Aaron Greavesy, who's catching a lot of strays in this, but all 3 of those have been moved on. What do you make of these changes, especially moving on Aaron Hamill, who was one of 2 assistants who were contracted for next year? What do you make of these moves?
Does this end the Hamill name at Carlton?
No,
Ian,
it doesn't.
Tell me. He's welcome
Absolutely not. He's welcome back. He always is.
Yeah. I mean, we knew that there was going to be changes. It sounds like there could be more changes still, potentially. Yeah. It's difficult for me to have opinions on these individuals because it's so hard to know the impact that they had. Like you said, how are we supposed to know what Greavesy was doing? He always looked busy. Is
that the George Costanza, though? He looks angry all the time, so people think he's busy.
I mean, it works.
He's got the headset on. He must be talking to someone.
He's got to be. So, yeah. No, I think it's good that there's change. As soon as they committed to another year, or at least going into next season with Voss, we knew that there had to be changes in this front. So I'm happy.
Well, this is the biggest nuffy thing I'll say, because again, there's no real knowing of it. But Greaves always gave off the vibe of he's one of Vossi's boys. And knowing kind of the contract situation with Voss at the moment, they've kind of backed him in, but they haven't. There's murmurs of Hinkley coming in, another high up from Port as well. There's that concern of, are we just surrounding him with his mates? The fact that we've already potentially got one out is
Sure.
Gives me a bit more intrigue and maybe a bit more trust that, okay, they're not just going to hire Vossi's boys and try to support him that way. They're going to try to bring in the right people. Even if that is not the case, that's just how my mind perceives it. And then I think Hamill was just a bit of a shock in that he was contracted. But I think any moves are good moves when clearly we need change. And hopefully there's more is kind of where I'm seeing it. Do you think that there will be more coaching outgoings, or is that just going to be it?
So am I right in saying that there's still some that are out of contract then?
I believe it's as far as the actual assistants. I don't know as far as development coaches, but Hanson's the only contracted assistant for next year.
Yeah. And they
but
normally
Tim Clark
isn't.
Things, Jordan right? Russell is not either.
They do normally announce if like a Tim Clark got a new contract.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we'll see. So much of this is about who is out there, which I'm sure is exactly what they're doing right now and seeing who would replace these guys with. I don't know. Change excites me right now.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm seeing it. But speaking of change, this could be the most seismic change if you wanted to look different going into 2026. Boy, would it feel like a completely different football club. We need to talk about Charlie Curnow again, and we're going a bit more in depth this time because the murmurs will not go away on his desire to move away from the Blues. What are your feelings around this story? Because again, it comes out, he wants to go, and then he says, "Oh, I'm happy to stay. I'm staying. I'm not going. I'm not going." A lot of conjecture. What are your feelings around this story?
Okay, let's work through this because my feelings have been changing as we've gone through this process. Yeah, you can't take anybody at any of their words, right? At this point of the year. So I think pointing to, he keeps saying, like, he said nothing, but he's staying. Like, I don't think that needs to come into this debate. Do I believe that what I believe based on just vibes and putting the pieces together as I can, I think that he isn't unhappy at Carlton, but I think he would be open to moving. That's the plot that I'm believing right now.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of my spot where it's, look, it's kind of almost, is it like a Bryce Gibbs in a way of, look, I would love to get out of here.
Yep.
But if you can't get a deal done, I'm happy to stay. That feels like what it is, and he's going to keep pushing.
That's how I
think. So, do you think it will happen? Because the biggest thing in this is, like, can another team actually give a deal that satisfies us? Like, where are you valuing him right now? Is there any part of you that goes, "Hey, we've just spoken about this. If you don't want to be here, go. Let's bring in someone who's committed. We'll take slightly unders." Is it a deal that has to be overs because he's contracted and he's one of the best key forwards in the game? I want to know your kind of value on this and what you would see or maybe accept as a good deal.
I think when the talks were out there about the Florence and like the let's package a whole bunch of things together. Robot, exactly. The whole idea of like packaging a bunch of things and that equaling one superstar, like that just doesn't resonate at all. The things I've been seeing in the mainstream media over the past week of people saying there has to be like an A grader, quote unquote, coming back, that resonates.
Yeah.
And when I look at these scenarios and try and be unbiased, there's names out there that I'm like, okay, like I'm open. I'm open to the discussion.
Yeah, I think I am too. And it's that weird thing as well. The more you hear a player kind of want to leave, the more I'm inclined to say, okay, well, what are the offers then? Because if you don't want to be here, I kind of want to get rid of anyone who's giving me negative energy. And as much as I love Charlie Curnow,
of course,
you can say that there's been some negatives around him, and his work rate has been questioned a little bit. And, you know, his body, obviously, there's been some issues there. do him and Harry work well together? There are scenarios I can see this kind of working, as much as I don't necessarily want to get rid of an A grader, because you don't know what the alternative is going to be. The grass isn't always greener, even if it looks that way on paper. But I agree with you. I think there is a deal that I would accept. Do I think another team would do it? I don't know, because then we're hearing, Cal Toomey comes out and says, oh, if he goes to Sydney, let's look at it. Sydney is saying that, what do we got here? Goulden, Warner, Heaney, and Blakey are, well, they're the untouchables.
They're
so
untouchable,
now,
obviously.
Obviously, it's like, well, you don't get Curnow then. Curnow's untouchable then. Like, why are yours untouchable, but ours aren't untouchable? And then they're trying to, like, the annoying thing with Kelly was like, so maybe like a row bottom, that'll maybe get things going. And you're like, is that it? Crazy. So I want to ask you a few questions around this, and we'll kind of find maybe his worth. If you were to make a trade, would a slew of high draft picks work for you? Does it have to be an A grader? Does it have to be a key forward? What are your kind of best case scenario? I'll accept this deal. What is that looking like? Because I think this is different to a lot of people.
Yep. I like this. I like this chat. Where do I want to begin? So in terms of people, seemingly in the last few days, the Gold Coast thing has quietened down. And I'm no Gold Coast expert by any means, but looking at their situation, they've got some really good key forward options. One of which, in King, there has always been rumors of him wanting to come back to Melbourne. And then Walter, who it's kind of unclear of his place, I'd say, moving forward from where I'm sitting. Both of those names are super intriguing to me. And I want to look at this as, this isn't just about like the players themselves, it's the whole situation. Like if Gold Coast, like who knows what conversations have been going on between Ben King and Hardwick and the team there. Like if they're worried that he's going to ask out at some stage, would it not make sense to capitalize now when they could bring in someone of Curnow's caliber? So to me, it doesn't seem unreasonable to say that some kind of swap of King and Curnow with whatever else to kind of balance it up could be a win-win.
Well, the interesting part of the Gold Coast, I wonder if that has cooled simply because they're still playing compared to a Sydney who season's done, so maybe it's not as out there. But let's entertain the Gold Coast thing just quickly.
Let's.
King for Curnow, would you do that as a straight swap?
Today.
Or where do you see the value being on either side to even it up? Do Gold Coast need more? Is King worth more? Is Curnow worth more? Because Charlie's 28, 194 centimeters, last 3 years averaging 56 goals from an average of 21 games a season. That's goals of 32, 57, and 81. King is 3 years younger. He's a bit taller at 202 centimeters. Last 3 years averages 52 goals compared to the 56. Same amount of average games. So where does that kind of balance for you?
I think, again, I'm no Gold Coast expert, but I like to think that I'm a Curnow expert. I would say you could make cases for either as being better. I think it's close enough to me between the two. Then you add in, so then you add those two factors in, which is, yes, King is younger, so that kind of brings him up. But if Gold Coast want to get ahead of it,
restricted free agent next year,
getting in Curnow now, that's where it kind of seems to me to be really even. I know it's not something that we really see, but
yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I think that's the closest to a straight swap that I would do. I think just because of the age in that, but maybe we get a little bit more. Who knows? Because we're kind of the team you've got to appease in this one. But that one does excite me. If it is a Walter, obviously he's 20 years old, so it's all kind of more hype on this. He's played 2 years of footy, averaging 14.5 goals from 15 games a season. We would need a little bit more. Where does that kind of sit for you?
Definitely.
Is it Walter and pick 6 that they have this year, which is Port Adelaide's pick? Is it Walter and a player? because Walter obviously was a very high draft pick. And I think we'd all say
Yeah.
Charlie Curnow's worth, if you were just to make it to picks, it's like 2 top 10 picks is
Yep.
probably where I would look at it. So that's Walter plus another top 10 style pick. What would you need to satisfy that deal?
That resonates with me. And but this is a bit of a different angle to the King thing, which is that if you're not so bullish on us in 2026 and you go, okay, add in Jed Walter, who from the bits of Gold Coast that I've seen when he's played, I'm like, damn it. I'm scared of going up against this guy. I think people are going to be scared of coming up against him throughout his career. He could be special. Bring him in. And it's like, okay, so now we're hopefully going to be good next year, but we're also preparing for the Walker, Dean, Jagger era with a gun 20-year-old forward. Like suddenly there's these two kind of timelines. Like that's pretty hot.
Oh, I 100% agree. And he looked so good in his draft year as well. He gave kind of Charlie Curnow vibes, which is the interesting component of this with his like, body and his size. There's a fierceness to the way he plays. It's almost everyone get out of my way. I'm taking this and I don't care who's standing there. I don't know what I'd love as the top up. I don't know if pick 6 is the ideal thing. Like, is then getting another youngster the right thing to do that is an unproven talent for a Charlie Curnow? Because I think when you're trading a guy like him, you really want to be sold on stuff. And Jed Walter, we still don't know whether he will be that A grader, which is why him in a draft pick worries me a bit more. But if you're maybe getting him in a player, that excites me just a little bit more. Players that could be thrown into the deal. I want to get your opinion. Not saying these are even likely, but a guy like a Bailey Humphrey getting thrown in there. I think he's the type of player that I'd like to come across. Then is there still maybe a second round pick in there? I don't know. You can make it up, but I think his style would work well. Is a Jake Rogers? I know he's an academy kid, so maybe he wouldn't come across, but adds a bit more to the midfield. He's young, an exciting prospect. Those kind of players who I'd be maybe wanting to add on. Do they excite you at all?
They do. Rogers is someone that I don't know as well, but Humphrey definitely has shown some awesome signs and feels like the kind of player that would fit well with us. Flanders is an interesting one.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of times this year. Such a weird career he's had already in such a young career. Seeming quite out of favor, which
is so strange.
Really be good for us. Right?
Well, there's been murmurs today that the Saints are very keen. I'd be keen on him regardless of a Curnow trade. Let's find a way to get Flanders into this side.
I agree.
Walter and Flanders for Curnow, and then you might be having to give something back there. I feel like I don't want to be too biased, but it feels like that's overs for a Curnow. But I think Flanders is the perfect. Flanders is the perfect midfielder for us to then get a Walter. That's a deal I'm doing.
That's pretty exciting.
That is a big win, in my opinion, as far as an almost losable situation that you'd imagine if you're trading a Charlie Curnow out of the team.
Yep, I agree. And I have to be consistent with my view of that we need to make some changes right now. I love Charlie. I don't want him to go, but something like that, like you have to be excited about the now and the future in a scenario like that. Whereas with Charlie, I mean, I was talking about this, shout out to J-Rob, we were talking about this on the weekend. Like, it's hard to predict where Curnow's career goes from here, I feel like, output-wise. Like, I don't know.
Had a lot of surgeries this year. Is that something to be concerned about?
That's what I'm saying.
It is concerning, but I want to look at Sydney as well, just quickly, because I think Gold Coast, like you mentioned, there's potential A graders or A graders in a King that are forward swaps that make sense. Curnow comes in, they need to get rid of a forward. Bang, we get the other in return. Sydney's a little bit more interesting. They've got a lot of key forwards, but none of them really stand out as a perfect Curnow replacement, straight swap. They're A graders are, your Goulden, your Warner, Heaney, Blakey types. So
Agreed.
in this scenario, is a Goulden Curnow swap good enough? And you worry about that key forward elsewhere? Where do you kind of see the trade if a key forward maybe isn't involved at that caliber? I want to unpack this potential Sydney scenarios.
Yeah. This is complicated. This is harder for me to wrap my head around. Like we mentioned before, I think that the bundling of players that don't include those names would have to be some absolutely serious bundling with picks as well, for there to be interest there. Like Papley always linked throughout the years. A player like him with more players and picks. But that I don't think Carlton would be very excited by that. So they would start by looking at those A graders. Goulden and Blakey out of those four feel like the only two that I know we said the untouchable thing. Like there's just no way that Sydney trade Heaney, right? That feels to me like the only. What do you?
I also don't want him. I don't want Heaney.
Oh, I'm not saying I want him either.
But this is not saying he's a bad player. The issue is that he's 29, and so if I'm trading a younger Charlie Curnow by a year, I just don't think that's the smartest thing to do in this situation. Warner, I'm worried about with the go home factor, so I wouldn't touch him. Blakey, I just don't think that position is worthy of this swap. I think he's an outstanding player, but I don't want to overpay for that kind of player. Goulden's the only A grader, and for me, I don't want a draft pick and one of their scrubs.
No.
It just isn't probably the thing for me. If Sydney want him, sweet, you can have him, but Goulden has to be on the table. And I don't know if Sydney are going to come to the table and do that, which is wild. It's like, why would you go after a player if you can't get a trade done? And for me, it's Goulden. And the question I want to ask for you is, where's the value balance, Curnow and Goulden? Goulden's obviously a gun midfielder.
So much younger.
Curnow's proven more and been a better key forward, which are harder to find. But Goulden has that age factor. So is it a straight swap, or does Sydney have to add in a first rounder? What does it kind of look like to you?
That's so hard. It's so hard. And it's so hard because of the positional element too. And like to your point before, we would then have to decide what replacing him looks like. Charlie, that is. So that would be part of this equation. The age difference is significant. I think that has to be factored in. Like I think it's pretty close in terms of overall value between the two, I'd have to say.
Would a Goulden and because I feel like this year's draft picks maybe don't work as well where we're positioned, and maybe next year's don't either because of the Cody Walker. We'll get to that at some stage, but like a Goulden future first for a Curnow future second is maybe we throw in a future third as well. Like where is that a yes for you? Because I would take that in a heartbeat, I think.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be a heartbeat, but you just imagine the thought of us lining up round one. Goulden out there. Like that's...
Give me Errol, please.
On. That's, again...
Sorry, Charlie. Get in the car. We're going to Sydney.
Yeah.
Is this overs? I kind of want to get the value on this, like a Goulden and maybe an Amati or McLean for Curnow and a pick.
Well, then at least it solves kind of that question of what's round one look like.
Because they'll have too many forwards at this stage. They'll have Amati, McLean, McDonald, Hayward, if you want to throw that in there, and Curnow. Like that's too many.
Yep. Yeah.
So it makes sense to dish one and an A grader. It just depends what we throw the other way. Goulden and one of those would be pretty handy. Do you have a preference on which player? Because I think Logan McDonald's going to cost you way too much. He'd be closer to the closer to the straight swap, but I don't want him in a straight swap.
Oh, I guess Amati then. I guess.
Or do you think, because Amati's obviously a bit more of a, I'd say, mobile than McLean. If Harry's potentially the mover up the ground, is McLean better stylized to being that guy that stays in the goal square, maybe more like a Shannon Neal type at Geelong with Cameron as the roamer.
Maybe.
Mm.
Hasn't impressed me a ton in the Sydney that I've watched. But the point is next year and what that looks like for us, I guess. And having, because who knows what other key forwards are out there and who we bring in. If we don't bring in any, then that's saying that, okay, O'Keefe is now like our forward, or Lemmy, we're going to rely on him after not playing a single game. Neither of those feel like good options.
I'll throw another couple of random things at you, and I understand with the father-son picks, it convolutes it a little bit. So, but just to have this, would a pick 9, a Marty or McLean, and a future first for Charlie and a future second?
No, I don't
get
think
2
so.
first-round picks and a key forward.
No, I don't think so. I think it's too speculative. To me.
Then you definitely want like the other one, which was pick 9, a Marty McLean and a Florent, and a second rounder for Curnow.
Yeah, I think it just lowers the ceiling of the list so much. I just don't think that you can quantify players in that way of Charlie's caliber.
I agree with you completely. I think if you're dishing Curnow, it has to be for an A grader. You don't sell one of your best players, one of the best players in the competition, for picks where you're hoping to draft the next Charlie Curnow. It just doesn't make sense to me in this. And he's contracted. Understand he might want to go, and normally you get rid of those players, but I could throw you a lot of examples of guys who stayed. Currently, Petrarca, Oliver. You had Danaher that stayed for an extra year or two. Papley's now stayed. Plenty of players have kind of wanted to move it. The deal hasn't happened, and they've stayed. And I feel like that's what's going on with Charlie here as well.
I have to be honest, like, this is exciting, this chat. Like, who knows how feasible it actually is? And we don't really know, where Sydney stand on all this. But
so I'm assuming you'd be very disappointed if we kind of caved, wanted to just move Charlie, and it was picks and Amati for Curnow, and we just made that deal.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty disastrous, like, just for where we're at.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Quick touch on Mitch McGovern, because
there's so much happening.
He wasn't selected the last 2 games of the season, therefore won't meet the trigger for next year. So thoughts on us probably not offering him a contract for next year, with Sauce leaving, Hoff injured, Kemp injured, Dean we don't know, which we touched on. Like, where do you sit on like retaining a McGovern?
Is that the consensus in the community at the moment, that we're not actually offering him a contract at all? Because my gut was just saying that we'd be offering him a lesser deal.
Well, it's kind of 50-50 at the moment, but the murmurs are that we're happy to get rid of him.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
Hence why we didn't do it, because he's not on a ridiculous amount of money. This isn't the big contract that he signed initially. This is his second contract at the club.
Totally. Well, yeah, maybe that's how it will play out. I think with the nature of triggers in contracts and that kind of thing, I think the club made the right decision to keep him out of 2 meaningless games for this, just so we have the flexibility. I mean, it kind of goes back to the discussion before. Sauce is gone, so if he goes as well, we don't have Hoff for next season. Yeah, not ideal, but he's also not exactly the same player as those guys. Like, he's more of the Haynes style.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I feel like I'd need to know what we're bringing in to get rid, because as much as I've spoken about him and like the leadership aspect, just feels like his skill set on a really low contract, with the injury, with the development, doesn't have to play every week, feels like such an easy win for me. Like, I can't imagine he'd be asking for a lot of money. I can't imagine there'd be a lot of teams really after him either. So we could lowball him a bit. It feels like an easy win for me to just re-sign him on low money.
I wonder about other teams. Like, do you think who is a better player, McGovern now or Martin 12 months ago?
As in Jack Martin. I think Jack Martin's ceiling's always been better.
Oh, definitely. The
yeah.
ceiling better. Yeah, I don't know. I think McGovern will be on a list next year.
Yeah. I agree. It was more I don't think if we lowballed him, he'd be so salty he'd then go somewhere else. I feel like you could offer him a little bit less, particularly because he took so much money off us early on. Hey mate, we gave you a bit. You could give us a bit this time.
Yeah.
But that one will be interesting. Yeah, sorry. You go.
No, I was going to say, my gut feeling is that he will be a Carlton player next year.
I really have the feeling he's not going to be at the club next year.
Interesting.
So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And we'll be going through. This is not the end of our kind of end of season content either. We will be diving into the list stuff even more. We'll be going through each individual player who's out of contract, keep, delist, trade, throw up so many random scenarios. Still have to do a proper end of season show where we go back on our predictions, see if anyone got anything correct. Very exciting stuff. But last thing I'll touch on, I just had to say that to get everyone excited for next week, is got about 5 minutes before we need to wrap this up. But father-sons, there is news, murmurs brewing on this. I just need your quick thoughts. This could almost be a half an hour segment. But what are your thoughts on them potentially changing the rules, which could mean Cody Walker does not make his way to the Blues? There's talks of a lockout of the first round of any academy, father-son, first 5 to 10 picks, scrapping the father-son rule altogether. Where do you kind of stand on it?
Look, maybe I'm not the most educated on this topic, but I have quite strong opinions, which are that I think the lockout concept is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I also think that the current compensation that clubs pay for father-sons and the like is also ridiculous and way too under. So I think, in my opinion, it should be as simple as the system remains as it is. We have access to Walker, but we need to there needs to be a better system of what we give up than being able to scrounge together a whole bunch of picks in the 30s and 40s. Like, that system, I think, is broken. Yeah. But kind of removing that father-son element of footy is such a unique part of our game, which has benefited so many clubs. Yes, there's clubs that it hasn't benefited. Well, you got to do what we did with TDK, buddy, and get them over the line to 100 games. Like salty, like St Kilda or clubs, or Freo, whoever it is that's really against this. Like, isn't that just kind of like the luck of it all?
I agree. I like father-son. It's a quirky thing. I've got a couple of ways to easily fix this, because I think scrapping it is insane. I think scrapping because the issue that people don't get with the academies is these expansion teams don't get father-sons at all because no one's played long enough. So they do need something else there. So the academies kind of does help even that out a little bit. It's simple. The first thing that is the most obvious, which someone smarter than me can iron out the details on this, but something as simple as you must have a pick in the same round that a bid falls, or it must be within X amount of picks, or however much the value is of the pick that is the bid. One of your picks has to be worth a certain amount of percentage of that points, which basically equates to, like, in a circumstance, if you have pick 10, the bid falls at 5, you have to use pick 10. No trading out and then bundling up a bunch of second and third rounders. You have to use a high value pick plus the picks to match the points. Like, this is a privilege that you're getting, so you have to pay up. No longer trade out, use the pick and some more. But you still have access. And then something that I think, if we're really worried about the father-son, and I haven't seen anyone mention this, I'm keen to know people's thoughts. What if you raise the amount of games? Because now that we're playing a lot more games, it seems players are hitting this mark. And if you want to just keep it to the real prestigious last names, what if you make it 150 or make it 200 games? 200 games, you're still getting the Ashcrofts, Silvani, Dacos. Those players are still coming through. We'd still get Cody Walker as well. Like, weirdly, like, players are 200 is a yes, you are a genuine legend of this football club.
Yeah.
You can have the Sun. I feel
Yeah.
like to maybe appease the St Kilda, we just up the games 50 or 100, and then you're still getting it. Because I'm sure there's going to be some scrubs running around of this bloke played 100 games for the club just, and you're like, who? Did he really play 100 games? And now we've got his gun son, like, and it feels a bit weird. Maybe that's just the simplest way to solve this. Up that, and then just obviously make it harder for teams to have to pay up.
Yeah. You're right. I actually haven't seen that discussed about raising the level of games. It's an interesting idea. I feel a lot more passionate about your first point, which is that I haven't heard anyone explain why it can't be that simple as just making the rules. Yeah, the privilege is the perfect word. It should not be a benefit to the club getting that player. Like, no, that's not absolutely. Of course, it shouldn't work like that.
There are so many ways you could make it where in the ruling, basically, that team has to use their highest pick, and it would be bad for them to trade it out. Instead, they're randomly going to, what if we just scrap it all together? Because we can't be bothered figuring it out. AFL, pay me $100. I'll come up with the system. It's ridiculous. And yeah, I think if you then, like I said, like if teams are complaining about the father-sons and we think we're getting now way too many of them, then just up the age. It makes sense if you want to keep the quirk and have these real strong tie kind of players to the football club, then if you've played 200 games, my goodness, you are in the fabric of this club. That deserves the Sun, maybe over 100. It's an interesting dilemma, and fingers crossed, whatever they do, we at least get Cody Walker, because I swear if we don't, I may stop following the sport.
I mean, if you want to make a name for yourself with this idea, it would be very interesting to know the percentage of father-son picks that have occurred that were to fathers that have played between 100 and 200 or 200 plus. Because I'm looking now at the list of the Carlton guys. Can you name a father-son that we had that played less than 200?
In what way are you saying that? Like the dad or the son?
As in, I'm agreeing with you that, let's say that it was 200 games, the minimum that you had to play as a father.
Well, that's the thing. We'd be still getting a lot of the ones that have come through. Yeah. Well, that's
Camperelli, Silvani,
Walker. It's an interesting thing. Dean is 200. Like, and this is kind of my point. Like,
McKay,
you're then getting the best of the best here. We're not like Collingwood is still getting the Dacosses, and there's a stronger tie, because I think the concern is that all of a sudden a name like a Dacos, well, they should play for Collingwood under this, and it'd feel weird if they didn't. That's because of the 200 games. I feel like 100 is probably a little bit less now. Maybe you could go through it and see if 150 works better. Maybe 200's too far. But rather than scrapping it or locking out, I feel like before we get to that stage, at least trialing and seeing what upping the games limit could be. It feels like you're still getting the legacy players.
I like it. I really think there's something there.
Yeah, but let us know your thoughts to that. Let us know your thoughts to everything we covered. It's going to be a massive off-season. We'll be back next week to do a bit of a season review, and we'll be going through the out-of-contract players. We're making more list moves and reacting to all the news that I'm sure there is going to be plenty. So let us know your thoughts in the YouTube comments down below. If you listened in audio form, head over to the socials at Navy Blue Corner. And yes, it is starting to heat up, Lockie. Some would say it's a scary time, but like you, I'm very excited to see what's to come up the bloody baggers. See you guys next time.